My family never thought I would become anything special. In fact, for most of my life, I was the quiet joke sitting at the dinner table, smiling politely while everyone else got the attention. If you have ever felt invisible in your own home, then you will understand exactly how this feels. My name is Sarah Anderson, and for 28 years, I was the daughter nobody was proud of. Not openly, at least. My parents never said it directly. They didn't have to. It was in the way my father's voice changed when he talked about my brother, Marcus, full of pride, full of excitement. And then the way it softened, almost faded, when he spoke to me. Marcus was everything they admired. Confident, loud, risk-taking. He owned multiple luxury car dealerships across different states. Every time we had a family gathering, he would arrive in a different high-end car, sometimes a Bentley, sometimes a Lamborghini. And my parents? They treated him like he had built an empire from nothing. Marcus just closed another deal. My mom would announce, even if nobody asked. 15 dealerships now, my dad would add proudly, like he was personally involved. Then their eyes would slowly shift toward me. I usually showed up in my simple Honda, wearing clean but modest clothes. Nothing flashy, nothing impressive. Still working at the bank, sweetheart? My father would say, patting my shoulder with a kind of sympathy that felt worse than criticism. I would smile, the same small, controlled smile I had perfected over the years. Yeah, I'd reply softly. Still there. And that was always the end of my story. Because to them, there was nothing more to tell. What they didn't know, what they never even thought to ask, was that I wasn't just working at a bank. I was working at Sentinel Private Bank, one of the most selective financial institutions in the region. And I wasn't a teller. I wasn't even a branch manager. At 27, I became the youngest investment director in the bank's 127-year history. I managed portfolios worth billions. I approved or rejected commercial loans that could make or destroy entire businesses. But my family had no idea. And that wasn't an accident. I chose not to tell them. Because deep down, I wanted to know something. If they stripped away money, titles, and status, would they ever value me? Or was I only worth something if I could impress them? That question had been sitting in my chest for over a decade. It started when I was 16. That was the year everything changed. My grandmother passed away. And with her, the only person in my family who truly saw me. She wasn't loud like Marcus. She didn't care about flashy success. But she watched people carefully, quietly. And somehow she always understood me. When her will was read, I learned that she had left me $50,000. Her entire life savings. Not Marcus. Me. The will was very clear. That money was for my education and my future. I remember holding that paper in my hands, feeling something I had never felt before. Someone believed in me. Completely. But that moment didn't last long. Because the same evening, my father called me into his study. Marcus was already there. Sitting comfortably, like he belonged in that room. Your brother has an opportunity, my father said, folding his hands on the desk. A dealership. A real one. But he needs help with the down payment. I didn't say anything at first. I already knew where this was going. We want you to give him $30,000 from your inheritance, he continued. Just like that. No hesitation. No discussion. I looked down at the paper in my hands, then back at him. Grandma said this money is for my education, I replied quietly. My voice wasn't loud, but it was steady. For a second there was silence. Then my father leaned back in his chair and sighed like I had disappointed him. Your grandmother made a mistake, he said flatly. Those words stayed with me, burned into my memory. She gave that money to the wrong grandchild. Marcus didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The small smirk on his face said everything. Marcus is going somewhere in life, my father continued. You should be realistic. Helping him is the smart decision. Something inside me shifted that day. Not anger. Not even sadness. Just clarity. I folded the paper carefully. No, I said. That was the first time I ever refused my family. And it changed everything. From that day on, I was no longer just the quiet daughter. I was the disappointing one. The selfish one. The one who didn't support the family. But I didn't argue. I didn't try to prove them wrong. I simply walked a different path. I used that money exactly the way my grandmother intended. For my education. For my growth. For my future. While Marcus received family investments, support, and constant praise, I built everything in silence. Step by step. Year by year. And no one noticed. Not yet. The meeting that changed everything. For years, I stayed quiet. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I was waiting to see how far things would go. And eventually they did. 3 months ago, everything started to shift. It was a Sunday dinner, the kind my mother insisted on, even though it was always the same story. Marcus talking, my parents listening, and me, sitting there observing. That night, Marcus walked in with a different kind of energy. Confident but sharper. Almost desperate, if you looked closely enough. "I've got big news," he announced, dropping his keys on the table like he owned the world. My father immediately leaned forward. "What is it, son?" Marcus smiled. "I'm expanding. A flagship dealership. Right in the premium district." My mother gasped softly. "That area? That's huge." Marcus nodded, clearly enjoying the attention. "Bentley, Rolls-Royce, Lamborghini, ultra-high-end inventory only. This is going to put me in a completely different league." My father looked like he might actually tear up. "That's my son," he said proudly. "Always thinking bigger." I stayed quiet, but something didn't feel right. Because I had seen his company's name before. Not at dinner. At work. On reports that weren't meant to impress, but to warn. "I've got a meeting next month," Marcus continued. "Sentinel Private Bank." That made my hand pause on my glass. "My bank. I'll be securing a $5 million line of credit," he added casually. "Should be easy. Banks compete for clients like me." I looked up at him. "Sentinel is pretty selective," I said carefully. "They don't approve just anything." Marcus laughed. "Not the friendly kind. The dismissive kind." "Sarah," he said, shaking his head, "this is real business. Not whatever paperwork you deal with." My mother smiled, patting his arm. "She wouldn't understand this level, honey." I didn't respond. But in that moment, something clicked. Because I already knew what Marcus didn't. I knew how Sentinel evaluated deals. I knew what kind of numbers got approved. And more importantly, I knew what kind of numbers got rejected. Over the next few weeks, I did exactly what I always did. My job. When Marcus's application officially came in, it landed exactly where it should. On my desk. $5 million. Commercial line of credit. Applicant, Anderson Luxury Auto Group. I stared at the file for a long moment. Then I passed it to my senior analyst. "Run a full review," I said calmly. "I want everything. No mention of family. No bias. Just facts." A few days later, the report came back. And it wasn't good. "Strong revenue," my analyst noted. "But high risk." I read every line carefully. "Debt levels too high. Cash flow unstable. Credit usage, nearly maxed out. Multiple payment delays." It was worse than I expected. So I dug deeper. 5 years of financial records. Tax returns. Credit reports. And the more I looked, the clearer it became. Marcus wasn't building an empire. He was holding one together, with borrowed money. Every new dealership was covering the last one. Every success story was hiding a growing problem. This wasn't expansion. This was survival. And the flagship project? It wasn't a bold move. It was a gamble. A desperate one. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the numbers. There was no emotion in my decision. There couldn't be. Because this wasn't about family. This was about responsibility. $5 million wasn't just money. It was risk. It was trust. And based on everything in front of me, the answer was simple. No, the loan should be denied. But I didn't cancel the meeting. Not yet. Because part of me wanted to see it. To see what would happen when confidence met reality. A week before the meeting, Marcus brought it up again at dinner. This time with blueprints. He spread them across the table like a trophy. "Look at this," he said. 12,000 square feet. Glass walls. Premium location. My father studied the designs like they were priceless art. "Incredible," he whispered. Marcus glanced at me. "You should come to the meeting," he said. "Might be educational." My mother laughed softly. "Oh, please." She'd be completely lost. I looked at him. Then at the plans. Then back at him. "Actually," I said calmly, "I'd like to come." He raised an eyebrow. "Seriously?" I nodded. "Yeah, I want to see how it works." He smirked. "All right. Thursday. 2 p.m. But don't say I didn't warn you, it's high-level stuff." I gave a small smile. "I'll try to keep up." That Thursday morning, I got ready like any other workday. Same routine. Same calm mindset. But this time, there was something different in the air. I wore my usual tailored navy suit. Simple. Professional. Nothing flashy. I drove to the bank, parked in my reserved executive spot, and took the private elevator up to the 42nd floor. My office overlooked the entire city. Quiet, clean, controlled. Exactly how I liked things. On my desk was Marcus's file. I had already memorized every detail. Every number. Every flaw. At 1:45 p.m., my assistant's voice came through. Your 2 o'clock is here. I stood up slowly. Give me 5 minutes, I said. I picked up the file, along with another one I had prepared. Then I walked toward the conference room. Each step steady. Each breath controlled. Because I knew something they didn't. This wasn't going to be a celebration. This was going to be a reality check. I stopped just outside the door, hearing their voices inside. My father laughing. My mother excited. Marcus confident as ever. For a moment, I just stood there. Then I reached for the handle. And opened the door. The truth they never saw coming. The door opened slowly. And every voice in the room went silent. My father was the first to notice me. Then my mother. And finally, Marcus. For a second, no one said anything. They were confused. Because in their minds, I didn't belong in that room. Sarah, my mother said, her voice uncertain. What are you doing here? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I walked calmly to the head of the table and took a seat. The seat. The one reserved for the decision maker. You made it, Marcus said with a small laugh. Didn't expect you to actually come. I looked at him, steady, composed. Oh, I wouldn't miss this, I replied. My father frowned slightly, glancing around the room. Where's the loan officer? He asked. We're here for a serious meeting. I opened the file in front of me. You're looking at her. Silence. Real silence this time. The kind that makes people uncomfortable. I think there's some confusion, Marcus said quickly. Sarah works here, but she's not. I'm the investment director, I said, cutting him off gently. My voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. I have final approval authority on all commercial loans over $500,000. I let that sink in, which includes your application. The color drained from Marcus's face. My mother blinked rapidly, trying to process what she just heard. My father just stared at me. You're the one making the decision? Marcus asked. Yes. I slid the file across the table. I've reviewed everything. Now my tone changed slightly. Still calm, but sharper. Before I give you my decision, I have a few questions. No one interrupted. No one moved. I turned a page. You reported $47 million in revenue last year, I said. That's correct, right? Marcus swallowed. Yes. What you didn't highlight is your profit margin. I looked up at him. 2.1%. He shifted in his seat. That's normal for. It's not, I said calmly. I slid another document toward him. Similar dealerships in your market average between 6 and 9%. I leaned forward slightly. Your margin is low because your debt is too high. My father tried to step in. Now wait a second. I didn't even look at him. Please don't interrupt, I said professionally. This is a financial review. That shut him up instantly. I continued. You currently owe over $23 million across multiple loans. I tapped the paper lightly. 43% of your income goes to debt payments. My mother's face had gone pale. Marcus looked like he was struggling to breathe. And that's not the only issue, I added. I opened another file. You've had multiple payment delays in the past 18 months. That's temporary, Marcus started. It's a pattern, I replied. Then I paused for a second and delivered the line that changed everything. I also reviewed your personal financial activity. His head snapped up. You what? Your credit usage is at 87%, I continued. Multiple maxed-out cards, outstanding balances, missed mortgage payments. The room felt smaller, tighter, and most concerning. I held his gaze. You've been moving money from your business accounts to cover personal expenses. My mother gasped. That's not true, Marcus said quickly. You're twisting things. I didn't react. That's called financial misconduct, I said calmly. And in some cases fraud. My father stood up suddenly. That's enough, he said loudly. You're going too far. Now I looked at him. Directly. This is my office, I said, my voice cold. Sit down. And slowly. He did. I turned back to Marcus. The flagship dealership you're planning? I said. It's not growth. I closed the file gently. It's desperation. Silence again. Heavy this time. You're trying to cover old debt with new debt, I continued. And the numbers don't support it. I pushed the final document toward him. A single word stamped across the top. Declined. Your loan is denied. Marcus stared at the paper like it didn't make sense. like his reality had just broken. "You can't do this," he said quietly. "I already did." I stood up slowly. "And one more thing." I opened the second file. The one they didn't know about. "I've forwarded your financial records to our fraud investigation team." My mother shook her head. No, you wouldn't." "They are required to report this," I said. "Within 48 hours. Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. "Sarah, please." For the first time, he sounded small. Not powerful. Not confident. Just scared. "If this goes through, I lose everything." I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said something he didn't expect. "You already did." Silence. Deep and final. I took a breath, then spoke again, softer this time. "You could have asked for help." All three of them looked at me, confused. "I do this every day," I continued. "I help businesses recover. I restructure debt. I fix problems." I shook my head slightly. "But you never asked. Because in your eyes, I was just the quiet daughter. The one with the basic bank job." My father looked down. My mother started crying. Marcus didn't say anything. He couldn't. I pressed the intercom. "Security, please." A few moments later, 2 officers appeared at the door. "Please escort them out," I said calmly. As they stood up to leave, my mother grabbed my arm. "You're destroying your brother's life." I gently removed her hand. "No," I said quietly. "He did that himself." They walked out, one by one, without another word. And just like that, the room was empty again. I stood there looking out at the city. No anger. No regret. Just clarity. For the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible anymore. Not because they finally saw me, but because I no longer needed them to. 6 months later, everything had changed. Marcus lost his business. Investigations led to charges. And eventually consequences he couldn't avoid. My parents tried to reach out. Apologies came slowly. Awkwardly. But for the first time, they were real. I didn't rush back. I didn't forget the past. But I allowed something small. A chance. On my terms. Because success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about building something so strong that their opinion no longer matters. Today, I lead a team managing billions. I make decisions that shape companies and futures. And I still drive the same simple car. Because I learned something early. Your worth is not what people see. It's what you build when no one is looking. And my grandmother? She knew that all along. She didn't make a mistake. She made an investment. And I made sure. It paid off.